In a world where AI is reshaping industries and redefining the way we work, one question remains front and centre. How do we preserve the human connection in this age of AI? And with automation accelerating processes and AI making decisions at lightning speed, the role of leadership is evolving. Yes, AI is enhancing efficiency, but it's relational leadership, empathy, trust, and authentic connection. These are the things that will define the future of work. So today I'm joined by Jen Croneberger, founder of the Human Leadership Institute and a 4-time TEDx speaker. And together we'll explore how relational leaders can foster greater trust and engagement during AI-driven implementations and transformations, and why psychological safety and human connection are more vital than ever in organisations that are embracing AI. But yes, we will explore the ethical dilemmas that AI presents, whether it be everything from bias to transparency, and most importantly, how leaders can better navigate them. And my guest also has so many lessons from sports psychology on confidence, resilience, and adaptability in leadership. So I'm genuinely excited to get Jen on the show today. So, as AI continues to reshape the workplace, are we at risk of losing the very thing that makes organisations thrive, the human connection? Well, let's find out by getting Jen onto the podcast now. So thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today, Jen. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Happy to do so. Thanks for having me, Neil. It's great to be here. So my name is Jen Croneberger, and I am the founder, and I guess I like to call myself the Chief Inspiration Officer of the Human Leadership Institute. And what we do at the Human Leadership Institute is we get to work with people who, really want to put the human at the center of business. And we've been able to really spend some time over the past 15 years plus. I'm not going to talk about my age at all, but we'll say that 15 years, 20 years experience in the industry. I've been around for a bit, but really recognizing the importance of human skills today, especially in the age of technology, transformation, AI, all of the things that are going on around us, the recognition that probably more so than ever, having these conversations around the ability to grow human skills and really focus in on that is just so incredibly important. So we that's really where we find ourselves. And for us, being able to kind of lean on my background, I have a master's degree in sports and human performance psychology. And I've worked with professional athletes and little kids and everything in between. And what I recognized, it was all the same stuff. It was about how we show up every day. It was about how we build teams. It was about human connection, and how we lead, through those cultures and build cultures that leaders can sustain. So all of that being said, as I brought that into corporate today and brought it into the work world as we see it, and recognized that it made sense. Understanding performance and people, recognizing that we can do both well if we know how to do it. That leads to ultimate success.
It really does. And it's so refreshing to hear somebody say that as well, especially in the tech industry, because I think now more than ever, we lose sight of the fact that it's not just about AI replacing people or people and AI. It's about doing it together. That's where the magic happens. And Chief Inspiration Officer, what a great title as well. I mean, please tell me that's on your passport application form. I'd love to be.
It needs to be, right?
Yeah, 100%. And of course, as AI continues to transform workplaces on both sides of the pond and beyond, how do you see relational leaders ensuring that human connection that you just mentioned there and empathy remain at the heart of the organisational culture? Because it feels like it's in danger of being lost with some of the conversations that we're seeing online.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, when we prioritize certain things, right? So one of those would be listening, really active listening, not just listening, to respond, but listening to understand. That fosters open dialogue. It reinforces really the value of emotional intelligence. I know that's, those are words that are thrown around a lot, but really understanding the ability to connect emotionally, to harness your own emotions and to be aware and understand others, it really is at the core of that. And I think, if we look at AI as being used as a tool to enhance, not replace human interactions, I think that's the win, right? That's what you're talking about, is bringing those things together. And I think leaders really can help design workplace structures that emphasize things like mentorship, collaboration, community building, ensuring that these technological advancements complement rather than diminish meaningful relationships and connection. And I think that's the key.
It really is, especially with AI-driven automation reshaping roles. I think many employees fear job displacement, but we have been here before with digital disruption. But how can leaders better foster psychological safety and help teams embrace AI as an enhancement, as a co-pilot, as a co-partner, rather than a replacement? Because it's very difficult, especially when you're seeing big tech companies with so many big tech redundancies at the moment.
Sure.
What should leaders be doing here?
Yeah, I think what's important is to have a culture of transparency, right?
Yeah.
We need to make sure that we are understanding what's at stake, and delivering that information in a clear and understood way. And then this idea of continuous learning, I think it includes clear communication about AI's role in maybe augmenting human potential rather than replacing it, right? Just kind of what we're talking about, encouraging maybe upskilling opportunities, learning opportunities, emphasizing adaptability and agility, celebrating really how AI can almost free employees from mundane tasks to focus maybe more on creative or strategic or high value work, right? That can help build confidence in that transition. And I think there's opportunities there that we maybe don't lean into as much as we could right now.
So true. And I think trust is critical during these times of rapid technological change. And for any leaders that are listening to our conversation today, maybe they're on this journey. They have employees who those employees maybe can't see beyond those mundane tasks and repetitive tasks that they're performing every day. The leader knows that they're capable of so much more than that and wants to put them on that train of continuous learning and looking at new roles that they can evolve with. What steps should those leaders be taking to build and maintain trust while navigating those AI-driven transformations and ensuring that they don't get left behind and brought along for the ride?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, again, going back to that transparency, I think leaders can actually strengthen trust by maybe openly addressing AI related changes. But along with that, really engaging employees in the decision making. And with that, I think comes the idea of demonstrating what we may see as ethical AI use, right? So consistent communication, inclusive leadership, providing employees with a voice in, shaping the AI integration. I think all of those things ensure that trust remains intact. And with that, I would say what we like to see a lot is when leaders model adaptability, right? Leaders show that AI adoption is a shared journey, not a top-down mandate, but something that you do together. I think that is what enhances that trust and continues for that to thrive.
And AI is often being promoted as a a tool for efficiency, but collaboration between humans and AI does require a different mindset. And sometimes I do wonder if that's why so many retreat to the binary mindset of, oh, it's humans versus AI, when it really isn't. So how can relational leaders guide teams in developing that more balanced and inclusive approach to working alongside AI rather than all the bad stuff?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think this has a lot to do with how we see it, right? This has a lot to do with the viewpoint, I think, that we encourage leaders to deliver and to really kind of live in. It's really framing these tools as more of a collective partner rather than an opponent, so to speak. So encouraging maybe a mindset shift toward that collaboration where AI enhances human capabilities rather than replaces them, right? Leaders in creating, I don't know, cross-functional learning opportunities, maybe as an example, establish those guidelines and promote diverse perspectives in the decision-making, ensuring inclusivity. I think that part is what keeps that balance. I think it's important to frame it correctly. I think that's the key.
Yeah, it really is. Frame it correctly. I love that. And one thing that I think we should raise and take seriously are the ethical concerns around AI. And typically they involve data privacy, bias in AI, greater transparency, which we've talked about a moment ago. So on that side of things, any advice that you would offer to leaders just to help them ensure that their AI implementation aligns with the overall organizational values and serves that greater good?
Sure. Yeah. I think number one is leaders have to really actively address concerns around bias. Really, recognizing that exists and that we can, if we're intentional, we can overcome that. I think, again, with transparency, you bring up a really good point with data privacy. I think that's another piece that if a leader is actively addressing these concerns, again, that leans into the transparency that we talked about. I think it's really important to recognize it, address it, and which also means advocating for these responsible AI practices. So it's not just enough to recognize it, but what are we going to do about it? So maybe we're engaging diverse stakeholder groups in the decision making. Maybe we're embedding ethical AI training into corporate strategy. Maybe that's the pathway to take in order to include different voices and have those open and transparent conversations. I think leaders also should push for regulatory compliance while setting internal accountability measures, really recognizing what does that mean to us as an organization? How do we do that effectively? And can we bring the right voices to the table to really lean into what those values and ethics are? Because I think that's the tipping point. I think that's the most important conversation to be having. How can we do that? That balances those things.
And when researching you, I quickly saw that you've worked with major organizations from Nike to Samsung and even the US Department of Defense. So you clearly have a unique and broad vantage point here. So I'm curious, are there any common leadership challenges that you see when it comes to AI adoption, and how could they be addressed? Because I think from the outside looking in, you might think these are all incredibly different industries and businesses, etc. But largely the problems are the same, right?
Yeah. Well, when you're dealing with people, it's at the center. And we kind of joke about this a lot, but people ask, what kind of industries do you serve, and where can we find you? And the interesting part of that is we have worked with so many different types of organizations because the main message is the main message, right? It's the idea that we're all human. And we have challenges that are very common across different spectrums like that. And, some of those challenges include, really at the core, sometimes it's just a resistance to change, right? That's like the main challenge that keeps people kind of stuck in that space of trying to overcome. For some in the AI world, it's, a lack of just AI literacy. It's how do we move forward? What does this do for me? And how can I learn quicker about, how we're implementing this? And then, concerns, about job security. Again, going back to that, I think that comes up a lot in a lot of conversations we've had is, how is this going to affect my team? And again, going back to how do leaders address these things, this is what oftentimes is what brings us in the door. It's, we've done some proprietary research on what our methodology, how that develops more relational leaders. And at this time, and with what it looks like in the future and where we sit right now with all the different things that are going on in the world of technology, I think it's really understanding how we are staying transparent, how we're implementing, what is going to align with our business objectives, who we are as an organization, but also building these cross-disciplinary teams that maybe merge technical expertise with human insight. And we're seeing a lot of that right now, where we are called in to help with that human piece. The research has shown us that we can do both well. We can focus on results while also focusing on people. And that's really at the core.
And at the very beginning of our conversation today, you mentioned that your background in sports and performance psychology. So I think this must also offer a unique perspective on leadership. So how do the principles of confidence building and resilience, how do things like this apply to leaders navigating AI-driven change? Because there are a lot of synergies there, aren't there, too, I'd imagine.
Yeah, for sure. I think, leaning into confidence, understanding where confidence comes from and how we lose it so quickly. It has been a really big cornerstone. Look, as we go into anything that's different or new or, something we've never done before, and it's scary. I mean, we can't get to innovation without a little bit of fear. And with a little bit of fear comes a little bit of courage to overcome the fear. And I think, as we're building confidence, we're building resilience, we're understanding what that looks like in real time. Adaptability, agility, all the things that are directly applicable to leading right now in an AI transformed world. I think the biggest piece of that and the common denominator here is having a growth mindset, embracing failure as part of innovation. Cultivating team cohesion, the culture, even amidst uncertainty, there has to be some sort of a cohesive culture. Just as athletes prepare for, unpredictable game scenarios that I've talked to people through, leaders also, have to equip their teams with that mental agility as well to thrive in an AI powered future, because we don't know, right? Where you're testing things out and doing things you've never done before. With that is going to come, some sort of fear and some sort of failure. And we have to learn how to handle both.
And looking ahead, as we move beyond that AI hype cycle and the technology matures, I'm curious, what role do you see the relational leadership playing in the next wave of AI advancements? And any advice you'd give to leaders that are maybe preparing for that new future of work now? I appreciate there's a fair amount of looking into virtual crystal balls here, but any advice?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think again, just kind of going back to the main themes we've been talking about, yeah. I think this idea of relational leadership, which we've really kind of leaned into after the research we've done, I think it's going to really become even more critical in guiding organizations through what may be, maybe there's ethical dilemmas in some of this movement forward. Maybe there's workforce transitions, like we've talked about, cultural shifts. Leaders are going to have to champion that human AI collaboration to really ensure that the technology serves the people, not the other way around. In order to create environments where empathy and inclusion remains central to success, we have to recognize that the people are what makes the AI work. And, at the end of the day, I think it's leaning into and almost doubling down on the fact that today more than ever, let's stop calling these soft skills. These are essential skills, and we can't move forward in an ethical or positive or successful way as any organization if we don't put that at the forefront.
And I think that's a powerful moment to end on. But before I do let you go, as the Chief Inspiration Officer, I'm going to ask you to leave an inspiring song to add to our Spotify playlist. Maybe it's a power song. Maybe it's something that means something to you. It could be anything at all. It can even be a guilty pleasure. But what would you like to add and why?
And I have so many of those, trust me. There's one that I always come back to in those moments of, when I go to speak somewhere, or I go to deliver either a keynote at an event or work with some clients, roll up my sleeves and kind of dig in with them on some work. I love the song "This Is Me" from The Greatest Showman. And what I love about it is if you search on YouTube, you will find that there is a version of that song that was filmed. And it was as they were getting the film greenlit. They were just, they were in a room. Hugh Jackman was in the room sitting there listening. And the version of this song it is just something otherworldly. You watch as confidence evolves in the room. You watch the singer come out from behind. She had a music stand there where she was, kind of, she started quietly. You watched it build into this place of confidence. And to watch what happens in that room is something that I use as an example of building trust in a room, building safe space, and building confidence as you grow. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful example of why we do the work we do, that at the core, how we do things, how we show up moves people. And we can do that from an emotionally intelligent place of connection. Human connection at the end of the day is everything. And that video on YouTube of that song being greenlit is just phenomenal. And it's something that I go back to anytime I need a little bit of a boost.
Oh, wow. Absolutely love that. Well, I'll add the song, the full version to the Spotify playlist, but I'll also find that video and I'll put that on the blog post that will accompany this episode so people can find it. Absolutely love that. Yeah. And so, when you said a moment ago, you do a lot of speaking and you go to events and keynotes and stuff. Yep. Is that your walk-on song as well, or is there something else for that?
It has been. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it.
Brilliant. And for anyone listening that would just like to find out more information about anything we talked about today, your work at the Human Leadership Institute, where would you like to point everyone?
Well, our website is the THEHLI, which stands for Human Leadership Institute.com, the HLI.com. That's probably the best place. You get really an all-encompassing look at what we're doing there, as well as the new book that's about to launch this spring. So you'll see information about that coming soon, and just a lot of information. You can see some of the research we've done is there as well. Or I'm on LinkedIn, again, the Human Leadership Institute, or just simply my name, Jen Croneberger. I'm there as well. So either way, I am available. I'm there. I love having these conversations. I love to just talk about, where we are today and how we can get the best out of our people, get the best out of ourselves moving forward.
Well, one of the things that I've loved about talking with you today is, yes, it has predominantly been about AI. It's a tech podcast. We're talking about AI, But we're talking about preserving humanity in a high-tech world, building trust during rapid technological change, fostering collaboration between people and machines. Yes, addressing ethical and social implications of AI. But it's not even about AI. It's all about human connection, was a line that you used there towards the end of our conversation. And again, powerful moment to end on. So thank you for sharing that with me today.
Excellent. Thank you, Neil. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure to be here.
As AI becomes more integrated into the workplace, one thing is clear. Technology should enhance the human connection, not replace it. And some of the big takeaways from my conversation with Jen today are that trust and transparency will continue to be essential when introducing AI-driven changes across the workplace. And AI should be viewed as a collaborative tool, not a competitor. And it is the leader's responsibility to guide teams in embracing that shift. Especially in terms of psychological safety and relational leadership, these things are the foundation for an adaptive, resilient workforce. And these are the things that are needed in the workplace now. And as for ethics, isn't just about compliance. It's actually about, again, embedding human values into technological decision making. And as AI evolves, how can we ensure that leadership remains deeply human-centred? And what can you and your organisation do to balance technology with empathy for a future where both humans and AI thrive? You know the drill. Let's continue this conversation. Email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, LinkedIn, X, Instagram, @NeilC. Nice and easy. Just tap that into your search bar, hit follow. But also send me a little message. Tell me who you are and where you listen, and I'll get back to you. I genuinely hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. I'll be staying in touch with Jen. I think it's absolute inspiration, but she's going to be. She is the Chief Inspiration Officer. That is a role that I would certainly aspire to. Hopefully you will join me again tomorrow. I've got another guest lined up for you, but thank you for listening today, and I will speak with you tomorrow. Bye for now.